Hello, I'm Chris Hartwell, and welcome to the Heartbeat. Today we're going to be talking about episode 7 of season 1 of HBO's The Night Of. Join me, won't you? So, with episode 7 of The Night Of, the trial for Nazir Khan begins, and in it, we are very quickly shown the courtroom for the three-ringed circus that it truly is, where witnesses are paraded in and out like trained animals, and lawyers just crack their proverbial whips to guide a jury in the direction they want them to go. All the while, the individuals that are truly connected to the case, family, loved ones, and friends, receive nothing but pain, shame, and despair. And that really was my favorite element of this penultimate episode. Just that contrast between the public charade and the private reality of these characters, and just watching to see how long they can maintain the former. And really, this episode, the first one to bow out of the show, was Mrs. Khan, so quickly overwhelmed by the brutality of Andrea's murder and the realization that the man who committed it really was an animal, and that that animal may well be her son. And a couple scenes later, really capture that in a heartbreaking way as we intercut between Naz in prison, smoking heroin, and Mrs. Khan looking at pictures of her son as a child. It, for me, just really brought home the terrifying and disorientating whiplash that woman must have been experiencing. Even I, as a viewer, have talked about the abruptness of Naz's evolution on this show, going from a nerdy pushover to a hardened inmate. But for this mother, she's seen her son go from an innocent baby that she once held in her arms to a suspect in a brutal murder case. Mr. Khan did remain in this three-ring circus just a little bit longer, in solidarity sitting in that courtroom day after day, and though he hung in there to the end of the episode, I am curious how much longer he can last, as it wasn't just his finances or his family heirlooms that he gave up this week. He was forfeiting his honor and his dignity, in action being forced to agree with his coworkers when they said, "You are the father of a killer." And next we have John Stone, who really did hop from one proverbial circus tent to the next, pretending to be a PA from Law & Order, a health enthusiast, a smooth-talking flirt, and a proud victor who had risen above the condition that had defined him for so long. But in nearly every one of those performances, John was forced to drop character. Don Taylor quite literally crushed him with threats. Gene Rothman flirted back in the one way that would actually make Stone feel genuinely self-conscious, and his son demonstrated that it wasn't ever his father's feat that had embarrassed him. And all of those failures ultimately pushed our attorney to finally admit, "I don't want to get rid of my cat." And of course, I'm not saying all of those actions were literally done for that feline, but they were done to earn the kind of unconditional and non-judgmental acceptance that that cat, and only that cat, had given to him. But this week, the charade was no more nauseatingly maintained than by characters like Rachel Wise, the coroner, and Dr. Katz. And the numerous references to the O.J. Simpson trial, from Dr. Katz's referred to involvement in it, to Chandra's quoting of the infamous, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," really did illustrate the kind of trial that the writers were trying to emulate this week. One less focused on the facts and evidence surrounding the night of the murder, and more about random snapshots of the past and present, intended to either smear or purify the actions and character of Naz, Andrea, and pretty much any individual that took the stand. And though Chandra too did find herself right in the middle of this almost farcical interplay, shining her own spotlight on anything and everything that would win the jury to her own side, we did see a few moments of truth and honesty from her this week. For example, there was the unexpected discovery of the second classmate that Naz had injured, which was followed by that beautiful shot of Chandra moving away from the stand, but the focus not adjusting with her. The attorney's world had gone completely out of focus. The clarity that she had once had was gone. And the second moment was one that, depending how it plays out in the series finale, I will either label as a bit of a misstep or an intriguing new direction. And that moment obviously was the kiss between Chandra and Naz. And the reason that I didn't outright condemn it as just cheesy, ridiculous melodrama, yet anyways, was because of the way the scene was shot and edited. By focusing on their hands, director Steven Zaillian seemed to be alluding to Chandra's willingness and ability to cover and mask a measure of Naz's sin, while also in no way being big enough to exonerate all of his brokenness and badness. And even more interesting than that was the intercutting between their first kiss and Andrea and Naz's first kiss, as it really pushed the moment away from being anything remotely romantic into much more unsettling and even tragic territory. These were two broken individuals who weren't connecting because they genuinely knew or loved one another, but because they were alone and afraid. I wonder too, with Chandra now being the more foolish, doe-eyed one, and Nas more and more being the despairing, disillusioned one, if this show is trying to bring our hero to a similar place that we saw Andrea by the series finale. And, of course, I had to save this week's most dynamic characters for last, because even more than Nas's and Box's dance between that charade and that truth being deftly written and handled, the connection between those two characters was just really powerfully played out on this week's penultimate episode. Because earlier on in the episode, both characters continued to maintain the course of action that they had for the past several episodes. Nas continuing to do things like sneak heroin into prison, while Box remained unyielding in sentiments like, "I'll take evidence over a confession any day of the week." But when Chandra implied that perhaps Box had removed Nas's inhaler from the evidence locker due to a subconscious desire to paint him in a certain way, we really began to see a doubt that the detective had masked for some time, the director using that same visual gag of the world going out of focus. But this time, it was Box's world. And as he was made aware of his failure to seek out people like Dwayne Reed or Royal Day, individuals that a pair of lawyers seemed to have no trouble tracking down, the detective's lack of investment in this case was really pulled into the light. And I just love the way that the final few minutes of this episode were cut, as they really did show us quite well the internal turmoil that Box was enduring, even as he externally was celebrating his retirement. Not only was he feeling the weight of the murdered girl seen at the beginning of this episode, whose life may have been spared had he considered suspects beyond Nas, but now, because he had put Nas behind bars, the blood of Victor was on his hands as well. And the near identical framing of Box sitting in that bar with his golf clubs in the foreground, and Victor lying on the ground, his bloody hand in the foreground, really spelt that out for us. And for Nas, that exact same murder really kind of marked the end of his charade of compliance, so to speak, to whatever others wanted for him. And in perfect irony, the very thing that Chandra and Box assumed would paint our hero in a positive light, that being his inhaler, ended up being the exact thing that he used to his advantage to assist in the murder of another man. An inhaler, something that very much represented Nas's weakness outside of prison, had now become a part of his strength, which very much played into what Freddie was talking about last week, that being how disrespected, ignored, and pushed around Nas had been prior to his incarceration, which makes me think, was this just one more step in Nas fully believing that sentiment? And before I close things out, guys, I just wanted to say this is a rather historic and exciting day for the Heartbeat. This channel has now reached 2,000 subscribers. So thank you so much, all of you who have subscribed, who have helped in the subscriptions by clicking the thumbs up, sharing these videos. Sincerely, I wish I could say more, I wish I could do more than just say thank you, but genuinely you have made each and every step to these first 2,000 subscribers really genuinely enjoyable and made it so much more than about getting to these different milestones. I've really enjoyed the process a lot. I've enjoyed connecting with you guys, reading your comments, so continue with me, guys. It's been a real joy, and here's to the next 2,000 subscribers, and on and on. Also, comment below about this specific episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the penultimate episode. Any predictions about the finale, definitely comment below and let me know. Finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.